Hi. I know I said there was just going to be one more lecture, but I decided I should break this into two. So this is Latin America and imperialism. First off, what is Latin America? Latin America is, so here's Canada, here's the United States. This line right here divides the United States and Mexico. And everything below here, including these islands, all of this is considered Latin America, all the way down to the tip. Why? Because in these countries, people speak Spanish, French, and Portuguese. And these languages are Latin languages. They originally came from Latin, and that's why it's called Latin America. So let's talk about it. So I'm going to go back to the map. We talked about this before when America was expanding from sea to sea. This land here in the Southwest, all of this used to belong to Mexico. All of this was Mexico. Well, this land right here, that is today called Texas, but at the time it was Mexico, people from the US kept kind of drifting down here across the border of the country and settling down here. They were United States citizens, but now they were living in Mexico. And they decided that nationalism came up for them, and they decided they wanted to be their own country. And they broke free from Mexico and made their own republic. They had their own president, they had their own government. They were an independent nation right here in between the United States and Mexico. Well, then the United States did what? What did the United States do to this land right here? They annexed it. They just took it and they said, that land belongs to us now. So that's how the United States got Texas. Was first people from the US had gone into Mexico, and then they got their independence from Mexico and became their own independent nation. So there was a different nation in between the United States and Mexico. And then the United States went in and said, no, you belong to us. That's how Texas became one of the states in the US. So in 1855, in 1855, this reformer, that means to change, this reformer, Benito Juarez, wanted to help Mexico. We talked about a bunch of change in Mexico before in the last chapter. We talked about changes all across Latin America. Well, a lot of those changes, even though they happened, they didn't really help the poor people. Life for the poor was still horrible. Well, Benito Juarez wanted to help the people. He didn't just want to help the rich. He wanted to help the poor. And he did a really good job. He really, really helped the people of Mexico. But what do you think the conservatives thought about that? They didn't I can't talk and I can't talk to you guys and write at the same time. The conservatives, they were rich and they liked things how they were. because they stayed rich and everybody else stayed poor, and they liked that. So they called on their buddy France. Hey, France, will you come help us? And France in 1863, that was led by Napoleon III at this time. This is when, this is Napoleon Bonaparte's nephew. Remember, we talked about this before. This is that guy. He sent Maximilian to be the emperor of Mexico. Well, then there was a war. Benito Juarez's guys and Maximilian and the conservatives with French help fought. So Benito Juarez, the reformer that was trying to help the people, was fighting against the Mexican conservatives and France that wanted to keep things how they were, keep the rich rich, and keep the poor poor. Well, France eventually gave up and pulled their soldiers out. And when they pulled their soldiers out, Benito Juarez's people got stronger and they killed Maximilian. They executed him. Then in 1872, Benito Juarez died. It was a sad day because he was a really, really good man for the people. And the people of Mexico still really, really praise this guy's name because he cared about the people. But then there was a coup. A coup is when someone goes in and takes over the government by force, by a guy named, let me write coup up here, a coup by Porfirio Diaz. And Porfirio Diaz was a conservative. So he wants to go back to the ways before Benito Juarez. He wants to have a few rich people and a whole bunch of poor people that work for the rich people. That's what he wants. And he gets his way. So Mexico goes back to the rich, keep getting richer, and the poor keep getting poorer. Keep getting poorer. Or it's just staying poor. Sometimes some of the people were so poor they couldn't really get any more poor than they were. But the rich were getting richer and richer and richer. And there were just a few of them. There were very, very few rich people. And they just kept getting richer and richer and richer, while the poor were just staying poor. And the people that maybe were not quite so poor are getting more and more poor. Now, while this was also the poor were oppressed, they were treated horribly. It was really bad. The rich had a very luxurious lifestyle, and it was not a good time to be poor. It's never a good time to be poor, but things had been a little bit better under Benito Juarez because he tried to help the people. Well, this guy, Porfirio, there's supposed to be an I there. Porfirio, he didn't care anything about the poor people. He just wanted to make himself rich, and he wanted to make his buddies rich, and who cares about the poor? So at this time, most business investment in Mexico was from the US and Britain. In fact, not just Mexico, all across Latin America. Let's start a new page. business investment. That means money, all the money that was in Latin America, business investment in Latin America. Most of it came from the US and Britain. And the foreign elites were totally, I'm sorry, not the foreign elites, the Latin American elites were totally okay with this because they would do things like rent their land to an American company. And the American company would pay lots of money to people to use their land to build a factory. And so this one rich guy that owned a bunch of land was now a whole lot richer because he leased his land out to an American company or to a British company. And they really just, these few rich people got insanely rich while life was still so hard for the poor. Well, in the 1820s, Spain started looking back over at Latin America and started thinking about colonizing again. And the United States and Britain looked at each other and they were like, hey, whoa, what are we gonna do? We're making all this money in Latin America. We can't let Spain do this. So the president of the United States of America, President of the United States of America, did this thing. His name was James Monroe. James Monroe was the president of the United States at the time. He made the Monroe Doctrine. Very important, know this. The Monroe Doctrine in 1823 stated that no land in Latin America was available to be colonized. Now, how did he do that? How did this guy have the right to tell the whole rest of the world, you can't colonize any of this land down here? None of this land, I didn't mean to do that. None of this land is available to be colonized. You're right. He didn't have any right to do that, but he just did it. And everyone said, okay, we won't colonize. So like it totally just worked because America was big and powerful at the time, and he could just say something and everybody said, okay. So Spain quit looking and Latin America was full of just US and mostly US and British businesses making themselves rich and making the British and and making the really wealthy of Mexico even more wealthy. So in 1848, there was a war. Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm making sure that I didn't leave anything out. Yes, okay. In 1848, there was a war with Mexico where, let me go back up here. So the US had already annexed this land and they got all the rest of this. They got New Mexico, Arizona, Nevada, California, Utah, and Colorado. All of this had been Mexican land, and now it belongs to the United States. Then Cuba. Cuba, this little island over here, who was at the time controlled by Spain, Cuba wanted independence. And the United States was like, hey there, little buddy, we'll help you get independence. We're your friends. We'll help you with that. Well, Spain wasn't too happy about that. And there was this small little war in 1898 called the Spanish-American War, where the United States helped Cuba get freedom from Spain. And the US won. But was the US really doing that because they were just friendly? No, that's not how governments work. The US wanted power. And as soon as they won that war, helping out Cuba, they put down their fist and they told Cuba, you have to change your constitution. The constitution of your nation must include that we Americans are allowed to have military bases on your island. So, and they called it the Platt Amendment. Yes, they called it the Platt Amendment. And this was a change to the Constitution of Cuba that the United States made Cuba do, giving the United States permission to have naval bases, that's the Navy, on the island of Cuba. Then, after that, get what the United States did. The United States announced to the whole world that they had international police power in the entire Western Hemisphere. It's the entire an entire half of the globe, half the world. The United States announced to the world, we have police power in half the world. And that was done by President Roosevelt in 1904. So the United States just did that. And then they started sending military troops all over the Western Hemisphere. The Western Hemisphere is this part of the world here. So they sent troops to the Dominican Republic here. They sent troops to Cuba. They sent troops to Haiti. They sent troops to Mexico. They sent troops to Honduras, which is down here. It's too small. It's one of these little bitty countries in here. They sent troops to Nicaragua. They sent troops to these tiny little islands in here and these islands here and lots of other countries. Like, no one gave them permission to do that. They just announced that they were the police of the world, of half the world. And so now, just like in Africa and Asia, how the people really resented and did not like Europe, now people all over Latin America are growing this great resentment and hatred towards the United States, because the United States is sending their police, their military, but their police power all over. And who gave them the right to do that? So people are mad. Then, let me go back to the map. The United States had always wanted to build a canal from here to here. Let me show you why. I'm going to make this a little smaller. If someone wants to send a ship from France to California, they had to leave France and go all the way down here and then all the way back up. But if they could instead come across here and go through a little canal right here, it would save so much time. So at the time, this place right here, Panama, was controlled by Colombia. Well, the United States went down here and made buddy-buddy with Panama and said, hey, how about we help you with your independence from Colombia? We're gonna help you out with that there, little buddy. You're our friend. We're gonna help you. So they backed a revolt. The United States supported a revolt of Panama against Colombia. And of course, because it was the United States against Colombia, the United States won and Panama got its independence. But, and like as a thank you gift, Panama gave the United States a little bit of land to make their canal. And they did. And that canal is called the Panama Canal. And just in case anyone's curious, I've actually been there. I've seen the Panama Canal. It's pretty cool. But anti-imperialist, anti-American feelings were growing all across Latin America at this time, because what America was doing was going in and they were taking over. They were making the rich richer. The rich, I can't tell you how rich the rich people of Latin America were getting, while the poor were just staying poor. And nationalism was growing all around Latin America at this time. And the nation of Panama did not actually get control of the canal in their country until recently, until the year 2000. In the year 2000, Panama got control of the canal in their country. That's it. We are finished with this unit. I'm going to make a test, but I'm going to be completely honest with you. I had a really, really long day and I'm very tired and I just don't have it in me to make a test tonight. So I'm going to do it tomorrow morning when I wake up. So you'll have all day Saturday and all day Sunday to take this test. I hope you enjoyed this lesson.